Imagine this common Canadian scene. Your alarm goes off early, long before the sun even considers making an appearance. The first thought of the day isn't about your dreams or your plans, but about the numbers that will define your every move. You glance at your phone, not for social media, but to check your bank balance, a ritual that sets the tone for the hours ahead. The cost of just existing in Canada today feels like a constant weight, a relentless pressure that shapes every decision, from the food you buy to the way you get to work. It's a reality shared by millions across this vast and beautiful country, a daily grind of making ends meet against ever-rising costs. The journey to your job begins, and with it, the expenses start to pile up. If you're in a major city like Toronto or Vancouver, you might be tapping a transit card, watching the fare deduct from your already tight budget. Each tap is a small but significant transaction, a reminder of the price of mobility. If you drive, the numbers at the gas pump seem to climb higher every week, a source of constant anxiety. Even before you've earned a single dollar for the day, you've already spent money just to get to the place where you can earn it. This cycle is a fundamental part of life for so many, a treadmill of earning and spending that feels impossible to step off of. Then there's the grocery store, a place that should be about nourishment but has become a battleground for budgets. You walk the aisles with a calculator in your head, comparing prices, choosing the store brand, and maybe putting back that small treat you wanted. The price of fresh produce, meat, and dairy has soared, turning a basic necessity into a luxury for some. A simple carton of milk, a loaf of bread, a dozen eggs, these staples now take a bigger bite out of your wallet than ever before. This isn't about extravagant spending. It's about the fundamental cost of feeding yourself and your family, a challenge that has become increasingly difficult for many to navigate. And looming over all of this is the single biggest expense: rent. The dream of having a place to call your own feels more distant than ever for a huge portion of the population. Whether it's a tiny basement apartment in a bustling metropolis or a modest unit in a smaller town, housing costs consume a massive chunk of the average person's income. The monthly ritual of paying rent can feel like handing over the majority of your hard-earned money, leaving very little left for everything else. This financial squeeze is not just a statistic. It's a lived experience, a daily reality of stress and sacrifice for countless individuals across Canada. This constant financial pressure leads us to a fundamental and urgent question, one that echoes in quiet apartments and on crowded buses across the nation. Looking at these mounting costs, we have to ask, can someone actually survive on minimum wage in Canada? It's a question that goes beyond simple arithmetic. It's not just about whether the numbers on a paycheck can cover the numbers on the bills, it's about the quality of that survival. Is it a life of constant stress, of foregoing healthcare needs, of having no room for emergencies, or is there a path to a stable, dignified existence? This is the core issue we need to unpack. The term survival itself can mean different things to different people. For some, it might mean just having a roof over their head and enough food to not go hungry. But is that truly living? This video aims to dig deeper than just the surface-level calculations. We will break down the numbers, province by province, to see what minimum wage actually looks like after taxes. We will explore the real, on-the-ground cost of living in different parts of the country, from the most expensive urban centers to more affordable rural areas. The goal is to paint a realistic, unvarnished picture of the financial landscape for those earning the lowest legal wage. But this exploration isn't just about spreadsheets and statistics. Numbers can only tell part of the story. The human element is where the true impact is felt. We will share real stories and experiences from people who are navigating this very challenge every single day. These are the voices of your neighbors, your coworkers, and fellow Canadians who are living this reality. Their struggles, their resourcefulness, and their perspectives are crucial to understanding what it truly means to live on a minimum wage income. It's through their experiences that we can begin to grasp the emotional and psychological toll of financial instability. Ultimately, our goal is to provide a comprehensive and empathetic breakdown of this complex issue. We'll examine government support systems, different living scenarios, and the creative strategies people use to get by. Is it possible to live on minimum wage in Canada today? The answer is not a simple yes or no. It's a deeply nuanced issue that involves compromise, sacrifice, and a level of resilience that many people don't have to consider. So let's break down the numbers, listen to the stories, and confront the reality of what it takes to survive, and maybe even thrive, in Canada. To even begin to answer the question of survival, we first need to understand what minimum wage actually means in Canada. Unlike some countries with a single national rate, Canada operates on a system where each province and territory sets its own minimum wage. This creates a complex and varied landscape of pay across the country. What you earn for an hour of work can be significantly different depending on whether you live in St. John's, Saskatoon, or Surrey. This patchwork system means that the conversation about minimum wage is never a single unified discussion. It's a collection of 10 provincial and 3 territorial stories, each with its own numbers, politics, and economic realities influencing the final rate. This provincial control leads to some significant disparities. For instance, as of our filming early this year, you'll find some of the highest minimum wages in places like British Columbia and Ontario. These provinces have rates that push towards the higher end of the scale, reflecting in part the higher cost of living in their major urban centers. Someone working a full-time minimum wage job in Vancouver is legally entitled to a higher hourly pay than someone in many other parts of the country. This regional approach is designed to be responsive to local economic conditions, but it also creates a system where your earning potential is tied directly to your postal code, which can feel arbitrary for those struggling to make ends meet. On the other end of the spectrum, you have provinces with considerably lower minimum wage rates. For example, provinces in Atlantic Canada or the Prairies have historically had and continue to have some of the lowest rates in the nation. While the cost of living in these regions may be lower than in Toronto or Vancouver, the gap in wages is substantial. A worker in New Brunswick or Saskatchewan, for instance, earns several dollars less per hour than their counterpart in BC. This difference adds up quickly over a week, a month, and a year, creating a very different financial reality and a distinct set of challenges for those at the bottom of the wage scale in these areas. This variation is the starting point for everything. Before we can even talk about budgets for rent or groceries, we have to acknowledge this fundamental inequality. A full-time 40-hour workweek results in a vastly different gross income depending on the province you call home. This isn't a small detail. It's the entire foundation upon which a person's financial life is built. So when we ask if you can survive on minimum wage, the first and most important clarifying question is always, where in Canada are we talking about? The answer to that question dramatically changes the numbers and the entire scope of the challenge ahead. The minimum wage isn't a static number, it's a moving target. Most provinces and territories review and adjust their rates on a regular basis, usually annually. These adjustments are often tied to inflation, using the Consumer Price Index to ensure that the purchasing power of the lowest paid workers doesn't fall too far behind. For example, many jurisdictions schedule their increases for the fall on October 1st or at the start of their fiscal year in the spring. This means that the figures we discuss today might be slightly different in just a few months, highlighting the constant state of flux for minimum wage earners and the importance of staying informed about upcoming changes in your specific province. This practice of regular inflation-tied increases is a relatively recent development. For many years, increases were more sporadic and often became a hot-button political issue during election campaigns. A government might freeze the rate for several years, only for a new government to implement a significant one-time hike. This created unpredictability for both workers and employers. The shift towards indexed, automatic adjustments is intended to depoliticize the process and provide a more stable, predictable path for wage growth. However, critics argue that these small, incremental increases often fail to keep pace with the real-world cost of living, especially for essentials like housing. It's also important to note the introduction of a federal minimum wage. Since late 2021, the Canadian government has set a minimum wage for workers in the federally regulated private sector. This includes industries like banking, telecommunications, and inter-provincial transportation. This federal rate is also indexed to inflation and is adjusted each year on April 1st. While it only applies to a fraction of the Canadian workforce, its existence sets a national benchmark. If a provincial or territorial minimum wage is lower than the federal one, employers in the federally regulated sector must pay the higher federal rate, ensuring a baseline standard for those specific workers across the country. So when we look at the minimum wage, we see a dynamic and evolving system. It's a blend of provincial autonomy and federal standards, with a modern push towards regular inflation-based adjustments. But the core debate remains. Are these wages, even with regular increases, enough? Is a wage designed to be the legal minimum also a living wage? A wage that allows for a decent quality of life beyond mere survival? As we'll see in the next section, when you start to subtract the real costs of rent, food, and transportation from these paychecks, the numbers reveal a stark and often difficult reality for millions of Canadians. Now that we understand the income side of the equation, let's dive into the expenses. And in Canada, there is no expense bigger, more daunting, or more impactful than the cost of housing. Rent is honestly the single largest line item in almost every minimum wage earner's budget, often consuming a dangerously high percentage of their monthly income. The general rule of thumb for financial health is to spend no more than 30% of your pre-tax income on housing. However, for someone earning minimum wage, especially in or near any major urban center, this guideline is not just difficult to meet, it is virtually impossible. The reality is that many are forced to spend 50%, 60%, or even more of their take-home pay just to keep a roof over their heads. The disparity in rent across the country is just as stark as the difference in wages. In major metropolitan areas like Vancouver and Toronto, the average rent for a one-bedroom apartment has skyrocketed to levels that are completely disconnected from what a minimum wage worker earns. Finding a place for under $2,000 a month in these cities is a monumental challenge, yet a full-time minimum wage job might only bring in around that much before taxes. This forces people into difficult situations, living far out in the suburbs with long, expensive commutes, sharing small spaces with multiple roommates, or living in substandard or even unsafe housing. The dream of having your own modest apartment is simply not attainable for a single person on minimum wage in Canada's largest cities. Even in what are considered more affordable cities, the pressure is mounting. Places like Halifax, Calgary, or even smaller towns have seen their rental markets tighten and prices surge in recent years. The affordability advantage they once held is rapidly eroding. A minimum wage earner in Regina or Winnipeg might have a better chance of finding a manageable rent than someone in Toronto, but it's still a significant struggle. The monthly rent check is a source of constant stress, a ticking clock that consumes the majority of the money earned through long hours of work. It leaves precious little for all other necessities, let alone any chance of saving for an emergency or a better future. This housing crisis creates a cycle that is incredibly difficult to break. When the majority of your income is dedicated to rent, you have no financial cushion. A sudden car repair, a medical expense not covered by provincial health care, or an unexpected reduction in work hours can quickly lead to a crisis. It means you can't save for a down payment to one day own a home, locking you into the rental market indefinitely. The sheer cost of shelter dictates every other financial choice, fundamentally limiting a person's ability to build a stable and secure life. It is the single biggest barrier to surviving, let alone thriving, on a minimum wage in Canada today. After rent, minimum wage earners face the next set of essentials: utilities, groceries, and transportation. Electricity, heating, water, and internet are non-negotiable, costs that fluctuate but never disappear. Grocery shopping is a constant exercise in sacrifice, with food inflation forcing tough choices between nutrition and affordability. Transit or car expenses eat up more of the budget, with even a single repair threatening financial disaster. Add it all up, and these basics consume nearly everything left after rent. There's no room for error, no cushion for emergencies. This is the monthly reality for those living on Canada's minimum wage. Let's compare life on minimum wage in Toronto, Halifax, and Regina. In Toronto, after taxes, a full-time worker's income barely covers a shared room, transit, and groceries, leaving almost nothing for emergencies. Halifax offers slightly more breathing room, but rising rents and lower wages keep budgets tight. In Regina, lower costs mean you might afford your own place, but the margin is razor thin. In every city, the story is the same. Minimum wage means constant stress, no savings, and a single unexpected bill can tip everything over. Geography changes the numbers, but not the struggle. Survival is a monthly battle, with zero margin for error. The cost of living outpaces wages everywhere. No city offers true security on minimum wage. The numbers may shift, but the hardship remains. Meet Maria, a single mother in Calgary, working full-time for minimum wage. Every day is a balancing act, stretching groceries, juggling bus rides, and picking up extra shifts just to get by. The food bank is now a regular stop, not a last resort. Maria's choices are never about wants, only about which necessity to sacrifice this month. She's not alone. Her story echoes across Canada. Minimum wage isn't a stepping stone for her, it's a trap. For Maria and thousands like her, life is a cycle of impossible choices and constant worry. The Canadian dream feels out of reach. Liam, a university student in Montreal, works part-time at minimum wage to cover rent, food, and tuition. He shares a cramped apartment, survives on cheap food, and juggles work with studies. Exhaustion and stress are constant, with grades and health suffering. The broke student cliché is now a crisis. Basic needs go unmet. Liam's debt grows as he struggles to afford the present. He wonders if the sacrifice will ever pay off. For students like Liam, minimum wage means fighting on two fronts: school and survival. The pressure is relentless. The Singh family, newcomers to Canada, both work minimum wage jobs while struggling to get their credentials recognized. Childcare costs nearly wipe out one income, so they rely on neighbors and informal care. The three share a one-bedroom basement apartment, sacrificing comfort for their daughter's future. Without support networks, they face barriers that keep them in low-wage work. Their dreams of professional careers are on hold, but hope for their child keeps them going. Their story is one of resilience and sacrifice. For many immigrants, the reality of minimum wage is a harsh contrast to the dream they were sold. Still, they work tirelessly, believing their struggle will build a better future for the next generation. Given the immense gap between minimum wage earnings and the cost of living, the Canadian government does offer a number of programs designed to provide financial relief to low-income individuals and families. These support systems act as a safety net, intended to ease some of the burden and make survival more manageable. One of the most significant federal programs is the Goods and Services Tax and Harmonized Sales Tax Credit, better known as the GST or HST credit. This is a tax-free quarterly payment that helps individuals and families with low and modest incomes offset the taxes they pay on the goods and services they purchase. It's a small but regular infusion of cash that can make a real difference when a budget is stretched to its absolute limit. Another crucial piece of the support puzzle is the Canada Child Benefit, or CCB. For families with children, like Maria's or the Singh family we met earlier, this benefit is an absolute lifeline. The CCB is a tax-free monthly payment made to eligible families to help with the cost of raising children under 18 years of age. The amount received is based on family income, with lower-income families receiving more support. In many cases, this monthly payment is the difference maker that allows for the purchase of new clothes, school supplies, or healthier food options for children, directly targeting the well-being of the next generation and easing the financial strain on their parents who are working low-wage jobs. Beyond these major federal programs, there are also various provincial and territorial initiatives that aim to help. These can vary widely, but often include things like rental assistance or housing subsidies, which provide a monthly stipend to help cover the high cost of rent. Some provinces offer credits to help with energy bills, prescription drug costs, or even dental care for low-income families and children. Navigating these programs can be complex, as each has its own eligibility requirements and application process. However, for those who qualify, these targeted benefits can provide critical support that addresses some of the most pressing and specific financial challenges faced by minimum wage earners in that particular region. Finally, a newer federal benefit worth mentioning is the Canada Workers Benefit, or CWB. This is a refundable tax credit intended to supplement the earnings of low-income workers and encourage them to enter and stay in the workforce. It provides a financial boost for individuals and families who are working but still struggling to make ends meet. It essentially acts as a top-up to their earnings, paid out through their tax return or in advance payments throughout the year. Together, these federal and provincial programs form a complex web of support, a patchwork quilt of benefits designed to catch those who are struggling and provide them with a measure of financial stability. With this array of government programs available, the critical question becomes, does it actually make a difference? Does this help truly close the gap between a minimum wage income and a livable income? The answer for most people is that while these benefits are essential and prevent deeper poverty, they often act more like patches on a leaky tire than a permanent fix. They certainly help, but they rarely elevate a person or family from a state of precarious survival to one of genuine financial security. The support payments can make the difference in paying a bill on time or affording a full week of groceries, but they don't fundamentally change the underlying economic reality. Consider the GST or HST credit. While helpful, the quarterly payments amount to a few $100s at most for a single individual. When spread over 3 months, this adds a relatively small amount to the monthly budget. It might cover a utility bill or a portion of the grocery costs, but it doesn't make a $2,000 rent payment suddenly affordable on a minimum wage income. The scale of the support is often mismatched with the scale of the problem, especially when it comes to the monumental cost of housing in most of the country. The benefits are a buffer against total disaster, but they are not powerful enough to bridge the chasm created by stagnant wages and soaring living expenses. Similarly, the Canada Child Benefit, while incredibly important for families, illustrates this same point. It significantly improves the lives of children, but it doesn't lift the entire family out of the low-income bracket. The money is rightly spent on the child's needs, but it doesn't solve the parents' struggle to afford rent, transportation, and their own basic necessities on a minimum wage. The programs are designed to alleviate poverty, not necessarily to create a pathway out of it. They help people tread water in a difficult financial sea, but they don't always provide the means to reach the shore of economic stability and build a better future for themselves. Ultimately, government help makes a profound difference between a desperate situation and a manageable, albeit difficult one. It is a critical lifeline that prevents many Canadians from falling into homelessness or experiencing severe hunger. However, it's not a substitute for wages that keep pace with the cost of living. The consensus among many anti-poverty advocates and individuals with lived experience is that these benefits are a crucial part of the social safety net, but they are not a solution in themselves. They patch the most dangerous holes, but don't fix the fundamental inadequacy of a minimum wage in the face of modern Canadian economic realities. The dream of living alone, of having a small space to call your very own, is a significant milestone for many. It represents independence, privacy, and a sense of personal achievement. However, for a single individual earning minimum wage in Canada, this dream is becoming increasingly unattainable, almost a fantasy in many parts of the country. As our budget examples have shown, the math simply does not work in most urban and even many suburban areas. The cost of a modest bachelor or one-bedroom apartment can easily consume an entire month's take-home pay, leaving absolutely nothing for food, utilities, or any other aspect of life. This harsh reality forces a stark choice: abandon the dream of living alone or face an impossible financial burden. For those who attempt to live alone on a minimum wage, life becomes a relentless exercise in extreme frugality and sacrifice. It means finding the cheapest possible housing, which often translates to living in less desirable neighborhoods, in aging buildings with potential maintenance issues, or in tiny, cramped basement units with little natural light. It means a diet that is heavily restricted, relying on the cheapest possible staples and foregoing most fresh produce or meat. There is no budget for social activities, no room for buying new clothes, and certainly no possibility of saving money for an emergency fund or for the future. Every single dollar is accounted for, and the mental load of this constant financial vigilance is exhausting. This solitary financial struggle can also lead to significant social isolation. When you have no disposable income, you cannot afford to go out with friends for a coffee, see a movie, or join a recreational sports team. Your world shrinks to the four walls of your apartment and your place of work. This lack of social connection can have a profound impact on mental health, compounding the stress and anxiety that already comes with financial precarity. The independence that living alone is supposed to represent can quickly turn into a lonely and isolating experience, cutting you off from the support networks that are so crucial for well-being, especially when facing hardship. Ultimately, the scenario of living alone on minimum wage is the most challenging of all. It is a path defined by constant sacrifice and the absence of any financial safety net. A single unexpected event, a toothache requiring dental work, a sudden illness leading to a few days of unpaid sick leave or a rent increase, can trigger a full-blown crisis with no one to share the burden. While it may be technically possible in the cheapest corners of the country, it is a life lived on the absolute edge, a state of survival that leaves no room for error, joy, or the simple pleasures that make life feel meaningful. It is a testament to just how far wages have fallen behind the cost of basic shelter. Faced with the impossible economics of living alone, the vast majority of single people earning minimum wage turn to the most common survival strategy: getting roommates. This is no longer just a rite of passage for students or those in their early 20s. It has become a long-term necessity for working adults of all ages. By sharing a larger apartment or house with 1, 2, or even more people, the crushing burden of rent is divided, making it far more manageable. Suddenly, a $2,400 per month 3-bedroom apartment becomes $800 per person, a figure that fits much more realistically into a minimum wage budget. This single change dramatically alters the financial equation, freeing up hundreds of dollars each month. The benefits of sharing a home extend beyond just the rent. Utilities like hydro, heating, and internet are also split among the household, significantly reducing each individual's monthly outlay. Groceries can sometimes be purchased in bulk, and household items like cleaning supplies become a shared expense. This pooling of resources is the fundamental reason why living with roommates is often the only viable path to survival. It creates a small amount of breathing room in a budget that would otherwise be suffocating. That extra money might mean a healthier diet, the ability to afford a monthly transit pass without worry, or even the chance to put a tiny amount aside into savings. However, this solution comes with its own set of compromises and challenges. The most obvious is the loss of privacy. You are sharing your kitchen, your bathroom, and your living space with other people who may have very different lifestyles, schedules, and standards of cleanliness. This can lead to conflicts over everything from dirty dishes left in the sink to noise levels late at night. Finding compatible roommates is a challenge in itself, and a bad living situation can add a significant amount of stress to an already difficult life. You are sacrificing personal space and autonomy in exchange for financial feasibility, a trade-off that can become wearing over time. Despite the potential for conflict, the roommate scenario can also offer a powerful and often overlooked benefit, a built-in support system. Living with others can combat the social isolation that often accompanies financial hardship. Your roommates can become your friends, a community to share struggles with, and a source of mutual aid. If one person is short on cash for a week, another might be able to help them out until payday. This sense of shared experience and solidarity can be a crucial emotional buffer against the stresses of living on a low income. For many, the roommate solution is not just a financial arrangement but a vital source of community and resilience. When we introduce a family into the minimum wage equation, the pressures and complexities multiply exponentially. A single parent earning minimum wage, like the composite character of Maria, faces one of the most difficult situations imaginable. They are solely responsible not only for their own survival but also for the complete well-being of their child or children. Every financial decision is weighed against the needs of their kids. The budget must now stretch to cover diapers, formula, clothing that is constantly being outgrown, school supplies and childcare, an expense so significant it can be crippling. The stress is immense, as the stakes are not just personal but involve the health and future of their children. For a two-parent family where both partners are earning minimum wage, like the Singh family, the situation might seem better on the surface due to the dual income. However, their expenses are also higher, and they face many of the same challenges. The cost of childcare can still consume a massive portion of their combined income, often making it feel like one parent is working solely to pay the daycare bill. Finding affordable housing that is large enough for a family is another immense hurdle, often forcing them into cramped or inadequate living conditions. The dream of saving for a down payment on a home feels impossibly distant when every dollar is allocated to immediate needs. The compromises that must be made in a family scenario are profound and often heartbreaking. It can mean parents skipping meals to ensure their children have enough to eat. It means saying no to extracurricular activities like sports or music lessons that could enrich a child's life but are simply unaffordable. It means living with the constant fear that a sick child could lead to lost wages and potential job loss if they have to take too much time off work. Parents in this situation carry a heavy emotional burden, a constant sense of guilt that they cannot provide more for their children, despite working tirelessly at their low-wage jobs. Ultimately, while government support like the Canada Child Benefit provides a critical lifeline, it does not solve the fundamental problem. For a single parent, survival is a daily, precarious balancing act on a razor's edge. For a two-parent family, 2 minimum wage incomes are often not enough to provide a stable, secure foundation, let alone allow for upward mobility. The family scenario highlights the deepest inadequacy of the minimum wage. It underscores that a wage floor that fails to support a family is failing in its most basic social function, forcing parents to make impossible choices and placing the well-being of the next generation at risk. When a full-time minimum wage job isn't enough to cover the basic costs of living, many Canadians are forced to get creative and find additional streams of income. This is where the world of side hustles comes in, a reality born not out of passion, but out of pure necessity. The gig economy has become a popular, if demanding, avenue for many. This involves signing up for app-based work like food delivery or ride-sharing services. The appeal lies in the flexibility. People can work during their off hours, on weekends, or late at night, piecing together extra earnings around their primary job schedule. It's a way to turn a car, a bike, and a smartphone into a source of much-needed cash to close the gap between their paycheck and their bills. However, these gig economy jobs are not a simple or easy solution to financial woes. The income can be highly inconsistent, dependent on demand, time of day, and even the weather. After accounting for expenses like gas, vehicle maintenance, and a portion set aside for taxes, the net hourly wage can sometimes be less than the minimum wage they earn at their main job. It also demands a significant amount of time and energy. For someone already working 40 hours a week, spending another 10 to 15 hours driving for a rideshare service or delivering meals can lead to extreme burnout, impacting their health and their performance at their primary place of employment. It is a grueling trade-off of time for money. Beyond the well-known apps, people turn to a wide variety of other side gigs to make ends meet. This can include freelance work online if they have skills in writing, graphic design, or administrative tasks, though these markets are highly competitive. Others turn to more traditional forms of part-time work, such as weekend retail shifts, babysitting, house cleaning, or seasonal jobs like landscaping in the summer or snow removal in the winter. Many leverage their hobbies, selling crafts on online marketplaces, or offering tutoring services in a subject they know well. Each of these hustles represents another block of time in an already packed schedule, a further sacrifice of personal time for financial survival. This constant search for extra income is a testament to the resourcefulness and resilience of those living on a low income, but it also paints a stark picture of the economic reality. The need for a side hustle is a clear indicator that the primary wage is insufficient. It transforms free time, which should be for rest, family, and personal well-being, into another block of work. While these efforts can provide a critical financial buffer, they come at a high personal cost. It is a survival strategy that stretches individuals to their physical and mental limits, a constant grind simply to stay afloat in Canada's expensive economic landscape. Beyond earning more money, creative survival also involves mastering the art of stretching every single dollar as far as it can possibly go. This requires a level of budgeting and financial discipline that is both meticulous and exhausting. People on minimum wage become experts in cost-saving hacks out of necessity. This includes extreme couponing, meticulously planning grocery shopping around weekly flyers, and utilizing price-matching apps to ensure they get the absolute lowest price on every item. They learn to cook all meals at home, often in large batches to be frozen for later, eliminating any possibility of buying a coffee or a quick lunch while out. Every purchase, no matter how small, is carefully considered and weighed against other needs. This frugality extends far beyond the grocery store. It means learning basic repair skills to fix clothing or small household appliances instead of replacing them. It involves embracing the second-hand economy, buying everything from clothes to furniture at thrift stores, on online marketplaces, or from garage sales. Transportation costs are minimized by walking or cycling whenever possible, even in poor weather, to save on transit fares or gas. Entertainment becomes finding free activities in the community, such as visiting the library, attending free local festivals, or spending time in public parks. This lifestyle is not a choice for minimalism. It is a required set of strategies to make an inadequate income last an entire month. Another critical survival strategy involves tapping into community resources. As we saw with Maria's story, food banks are an essential lifeline for a growing number of low-income Canadians, helping to fill the cupboards when a paycheck runs short. But the support extends beyond food. Many communities have tool libraries, allowing people to borrow tools for home repairs instead of buying them. Community gardens offer a chance to grow fresh produce for a fraction of the cost at a grocery store. Some nonprofits run clothing drives or offer financial literacy workshops, providing both material support and valuable knowledge. These community-based organizations fill crucial gaps left by insufficient wages and government support. These tips and hacks demonstrate incredible ingenuity, but they also highlight a system where people are forced to expend enormous mental energy just to manage their poverty. The constant need to be hyper-vigilant about every cent creates a significant cognitive load, adding to the stress of an already difficult situation. While these strategies are essential for survival, they are not a long-term solution to systemic wage issues. They are the inventive and often invisible labor performed by those on the lowest rungs of the economic ladder, a daily masterclass in resilience that underscores the profound challenge of living on a minimum wage in Canada today. So, after breaking down the wages, the staggering costs, the real-life stories, and the survival strategies, we return to our central question: can you truly survive on minimum wage in Canada? The technical, and perhaps unsatisfying answer is yes. It is, for many, possible. Millions of Canadians do it every single day, demonstrating a level of resilience and resourcefulness that is nothing short of remarkable. They piece together full-time jobs with side hustles, they share crowded apartments with roommates, they master the art of extreme budgeting, and they lean on community support systems like food banks to fill the gaps. They manage to keep a roof over their heads and food on the table, meeting the most basic definition of survival. However, this simple yes completely fails to capture the full truth of the situation. The more important question is not if it's possible, but at what cost this survival comes. The reality we've uncovered is that living on minimum wage in Canada today is a life lived on the absolute edge, a state of constant financial precarity where there is no room for error, no cushion for emergencies, and no space for joy. It comes at the cost of one's mental and physical health, worn down by the ceaseless stress of making ends meet. It comes at the cost of time, with every spare moment consumed by work or the search for more work, leaving none for rest, family, or personal growth. It is a survival stripped of dignity and security. The compromises are immense and deeply personal. It means parents skipping meals so their children can eat, students sacrificing their grades for a work shift, and single individuals enduring profound social isolation because they cannot afford a simple coffee with a friend. It is a life of, or instead of, and rent or a healthy diet, a bus pass or new shoes, a utility bill or a dental visit. This is not the life that anyone dreams of, and it is certainly not the promise of a prosperous nation like Canada. The system as it stands forces its lowest-paid workers into a cycle of poverty that is incredibly difficult to escape, where all energy is focused on the present moment, with no ability to plan for or build a better future. Ultimately, we must challenge our definition of what it means to live. Is the goal merely to survive, to tread water indefinitely in a sea of rising costs? Or should the goal be to thrive, to have stability, to pursue opportunities, to participate fully in society, and to have a sense of hope for the future? The conversation around minimum wage needs to shift from a debate about the bare minimum required to exist to a discussion about what constitutes a genuine living wage. Because at the end of the day, a job should provide more than just a means to get by. It should offer a pathway to a decent life. It's not just about surviving. It's about having the chance to truly live.